I think we can start now though. So, hello everybody. Oh, dude, we got like seven people in there. Well, probably two of us
Oh
as well
wait,
as
the
us.
chat shows up here too. Oh wait, no, that's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
never mind.
Uh, oh,
Wait,
we
are
are
we
on.
live now?
We're live now. We're live now.
Oh
Hi
no, we're
everybody.
live.
My name is Pete
Oh,
Nguyen. And this is Joyce Han. And we are going to share with you our collaborative zine making experience. Joyce, you have anything to say before we get started?
no, just hi. See you here.
So I am a writer and Joyce is an amazing artist, and so we had met up and we would love to share our experience with you, hopefully with the intention of giving you guys inspiration in collaborating with someone else while making a zine. I'm sure many of you that are in there watching right now uh, are hey Miguel, what's up, man? Miguel's in chat.
Hey, Miguel.
And you've done zines on your own, but we just wanted to share like our synergistic um, experience because we were so excited kind of how that came about, and as well as Joyce is also going to be sharing a little bit about her tips and tricks into how she kind of did her art stuff. So let's get started. Here we go. Because I see in there right now there's a couple of you in there, so let's get started. Honestly, a thing right now just to kind of like we like to see kind of how you're feeling. So if you're in chat, feel free to share how you're feeling, where you're from, you know, your background, your interests, so that we can kind of like cater this to whoever's in the chat right now. But feel free to just go ahead and just spam up that chat like it's Twitch chat, and let us know how you feel. The other thing you wanna go ahead and like what you want to get out of this. Now we're planning on having this being like a 15-20 minuter, depending on how it goes. But as we look into the chat, we'll go ahead and check out to see if, you know, if there's something that you guys want to get out of this, maybe we can answer that question. So feel free to use these sentence starters like I want to learn about, I want to know more about, or things like that. So I want to get started by just showing kind of how I get started with the process, and then how it kind of, hey, Daniel, how's it going? Concept artist. Hey, there we go, Daniel. Thanks for coming in. So the process that started the process I've done, because I've some of you may know I make comic books and stuff like that, and so I've been transitioning into creating zines, and so I've created a zine before, and at this point my system was kind of like this, but then as it transitioned, into what when I was working with Joyce into this. So we started with the idea. I came up with a writer sketch and script. And then I sort of handed it off to Joyce, and she did her thing, which she'll talk about in a second. And then we kind of came up with a sort of final product. So let's get into that. The way that this came about was very early on. The one that Joyce and I are working on very early on. We had this, or this was outside. This is when COVID hit, probably around March is when this was. And around March, I went outside my house, and this posted up outside my house. And now, you know, I've been through.
Wait, Pete, do you have the presentation up?
Oh, sorry, I don't have the presentation up.
Yeah, I
Shoot.
was like, wait.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't be
there
so
we go.
proud.
See, that's why I have you looking out. That's why I have you looking out.
Yeah.
That's why you have you looking out. So now now you can see it. There we go. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, there you go. See, I can see it pop up now. So. So in the experience, like I've been through some racial experience before. I'm an older person, but I haven't. It's been a while since I've faced this kind of racism like up in my face for so long. And so a zine is a good place to share these experiences, these political statements and things like that. So when I created this. I created this SketchUp, and I used this format, like how to make a zine, the 8-page one. I think Gloria did a presentation earlier today about how to fold this up and make it. So
Yeah.
we were making this. I had this idea to make this like this, and I sketched it up like this. But I'm not an artist; I'm a writer, and so I made this script. And it looks like this, and then And then I looked for reference photos because I knew I was going to hand this off to an artist. I just didn't know which artist that I was going to hand it off to. And a quick story about the handoff before I hand this off to Joyce. But I had found an art, so I have Facebook friends on there that were artists, and so I had asked an artist that, well, is my friend, and I said, hey, you want to work with me on this? And he said, sure. And then he found out it was about the racism that I went through as an Asian American, and he said, you know what, I'm trying to avoid politics, so I don't think I can do it. And then I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, that's fine. Don't. And then an hour later, he posts that he doesn't believe in systemic racism. And so I'm very grateful that he did not work with me collaboratively on this, because he would have been the wrong choice for this. He wouldn't have, understood kind of what I'm going through. But luckily for me, I had met Joyce at do you remember what it was? It was
I
another
think it was Ground Zero,
Ground
the
Zero
pop-up one.
pop-up.
Yeah.
It was in Stanton, and we
Yeah.
both met, and then we've been kind of on and off connecting. And then I kind of reached out to her, I think, about this, like it just kind of came about. And so, I'm very excited to kind of share that experience and stuff. And so I got my script and all my reference photos, and I handed it off to Joyce. And Joyce, what were your first thoughts about when you kind of got my script? What were you thinking?
Well, I like the fact that it was very open-ended. And I really it hit home for me too, this message. And I'm not someone who is very like I don't really share about this stuff too much. It's something that I kind of refrain from. Something that might be divisive or cause, arguments or whatnot. And I'm kind of more on the quiet end, and I'm shyer. So, but with this, this was very near to me since I'm Asian too. And experiencing that. And then I think Pete deciding he wanted to share that with people through making a zine, that like encouraged me too to, because he gave me the opportunity to speak out, and I could do that through my art in my own way. And so that was really cool for me. And I can just talk about the process of how I took his like words and like his reference images and how I created.
Now remember, everyone, she started with this amazing piece of script right here. And so from this, we start with kind of this process. So you kind of shared this with me yesterday, but kind of share with us what were you kind of trying to do with these images?
Okay, so this slide is the first step in like creating like any like art process or whatnot, is trying to figure out like what you want the theme, or like having like a vision for the project. And so I looked up just like on Pinterest, like different ideas, what people have done for their zines. And I wanted to kind of resemble like Asian culture, because it's about, Asians and the racism that we've received. And so I wanted to have like an anime feel to it. So I just picked a bunch of reference images, and these are the images I sent Pete. And throughout the whole process, I'm, communicating back and forth with Pete. So he's part of the process as much as I am. And once I have, that down, I go into the brainstorming part of it. And on the next slide, you can see here are just some sketches that I did initially. I was just writing some notes down, and the important part of this step of the process is that don't worry about it making it to like perfect or neat. You just want to get the ideas down. And I just had pages and pages of sketches, and I sent them all to Pete, and he was just like, whoa, like there's so much.
Yeah. Now remember, guys, everyone, she started with this. And so a lot of
go back to this all the time.
Yeah, I do, because here's the thing about our process, and it like the synergy I felt like worked with us in a sense that the way that I write, I really like the artist to have a lot of freedom, because every artist is good at different things. And so I wanted to make sure to have that freedom, but some artists don't like that freedom. And so I would have to be more detailed. And so luckily for me, Joyce relishes in kind of giving her that kind of freedom, right, Joyce?
Yeah, definitely. I'm someone who definitely need that freedom. I'm someone who likes just exploring, and I need that creative liberty to do that. But the good thing about working with Pete is that, unlike working by myself, where I have to set my own deadlines and, you know, my own standards can be very high, as you might experience that as an artist. Working with Pete, it was really encouraging because Pete gives me like structure to work in. He not only
Because
gives me,
guys, my standards are way lower than Joyce's. So just know that. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, it's the whole boundary kind of concept, right,
yeah,
Joyce?
definitely. Like, it's like you're giving me the space to be free, but it's like you're also guiding me through this because I have to respond to someone besides myself. So I thought that was really cool about collaborating in the zine making process. Yeah, and in the next step, you can see that once I decided like which images I wanted to use for each page based on the script that he gave me, I sketched it all out into this like 1-page final layout so that I could show it to Pete. And that's also important in the process is if you're working with a client, then you also have to remember that it's not just for your eyes only. So you have to make it presentable. And so here's, a final page. I sketched this up and then I scanned it, sent it to Pete, and Pete was just like, this is great, go with it. And that's how I just started getting into the finalization processes.
So Joyce, let me ask you this though
Yeah,
before you get into your finalization process,
yeah,
because Daniel and Chad had mentioned the concept or the idea that yeah, he is a perfectionist. So you're a perfectionist too, right? So like
yeah.
was that part of the struggle if you were to do something solo, is that being a perfectionist, you don't know when to kind of be like, this is it. This is gonna, I have to just be happy with where this is at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, how me and Pete met at the expo was like, I was just talking to him about how I'm so perfectionistic that I can never finish like my projects. And he was just like creating these comics and I wanted to do that. So I asked him like how he did that. And yeah, he just gave me a lot of good advice that you just gotta like do it. You just gotta move past your fears and just feeling like it's not good enough. You just do it and then you just build on from there and you get better and better.
I'm
And
glad that any of my advice was useful. I was just, if you
it
guys
was
didn't know,
it
I
was a
just throw
great
out a bunch of stuff and
conversation.
who knows what sticks on the wall. So, no, I did, Joyce, I did share with you one of my own things because
Mhm.
I sharing my age, I will reveal, is for, early 40s. So I'm
Uh-huh.
starting late. But one of the things that was stopping me, as well as, maybe you, Daniel, or you, Joyce, is the idea that like, I know I could do better. So I never want to start, right? Like I start with one
Yeah.
thing and I keep building. And I finally, even I told my brother, who is also works with me on my
Yeah.
comics, is that you don't want to be paralyzed by perfection. There's a certain level of just be happy with this and move on because it'll be better
Mhm.
later anyway, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm glad some of that advice worked out.
D-
So
yeah, like totally. I like started a lot of and finished a lot of projects just like that. What that conversation we had was like a really like a turning point for me. So
let, let,
definitely,
let's go
yeah,
to you had this. So this is very art specific, and so this is way over my head. So what if you can explain to people like writers like me and stuff, like what are you doing here?
yeah, definitely. So this part, I actually have it here. So it's important in the creative process is especially with making zines. You have to know your medium. And with zine making, a lot of it, you're going to be doing it traditional, or we decided to do it traditionally. And I knew that if it's traditional, that it's going to be scanned. So when I put it down on the paper that I use, like when I scan it, it's going to look different. So this process, I wanted to show this because a lot of people don't really see that the creative process. A lot of times artists they just show kind of like the final piece and you're just like, wow, that's amazing, how did that happen? that I can never do that. But this is important because here's all the work that goes into it. And so here's just the paper that I use. I just tried different kinds of like medium, just like gouache, watercolor, like brush pens and marker pens and whatnot. And so here's that picture on the left is the actual paper, and then the one on the right is the scanned version. And I used this throughout the whole process for kind of like a key and a reference point. So I was just constantly looking at the two and being like, okay, I want to use this to get this result. And if you can go to the next slide,
So,
you
so
can see
Joyce,
how that shows up.
you did this because we had planned to kind of print it like, black and white, and
Oh
then,
yeah.
right, like,
Yeah.
or is that why you did this? Like, because
Yeah,
we weren't
definitely.
planning to do color, obviously, like, because we
Yeah.
don't have a color printer, you know what I mean? Like, but.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that if you see on the left side, there are some like colored markers. But the whole point of that was because I didn't have like a gray marker that the value was lighter. So I use like blue, and you can see there's like yellow and brown to figure out like which value is going to show up lighter than. I wanted a range of values and as big of a range as I could get. And yeah, that was what that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can see here, me and Pete talked about like what size we were gonna do it initially. And I think that's important to note. Like throughout this process, a lot of things are going to change. It's not like exactly from the get-go what it's going to look like. And I think that's the great thing about collaborating, is that, but like I felt for me like I also had a hand on the reins of this project, and it was nice like that we like worked so well that we could create something like this. And as you can see here on the left is I started off with blue pencil sketches so that it wouldn't be picked up by scanner, and then I went into inking it on the right with just all the different types of materials based on the point of reference that I had on hand. And on the next slide is like the final piece of what it looks like after it's scanned. And this is the first page after the cover of the zine. And Pete showed me originally what he gave me was that picture of like the guy in front of the flag. And it's on the next slide, Pete.
Yeah, so let me actually talk about that. I want to recognize Esther. Yes, that actually got me too when she, that idea of not being paralyzed by perfection. And thank you, Daniel. Yeah. Joyce is a very resourceful person. I am finding so. But let me show you what she was working on before that. So when the references I gave her. So on the left side, you can see kind of the idea I had behind it, and then I found a reference photo for it. And the idea behind this, and actually I didn't discover wholly what this idea was until Joyce and I had this conversation actually last night, which was that like. I was looking for a political ad kind of feel, because there's that feel that like when you're watching a political ad, especially nowadays, right? Well, but it's always, but like, nowadays specifically, like you're watching a political ad, that there's a certain level of untruth to it. And that's what I was kind of aiming for. And so, but I didn't know that was very like subconscious for me, right? Like I was initially just, I kind of want to like a little ad look, right? But then, as we think about it a little deeper, that I was looking for the ad look because there's this false kind of truth to the fact that I feel like I'm an American as an Asian American, but that moment when I saw that Asian virus tagged right next to my house, that I didn't feel American, and I didn't really, combine that together consciously. That was a very subconscious connection. And so when I gave this to Joyce, she kind of came up with this. Can you talk about like how you transitioned to what I gave you to this?
Yeah. Definitely. So like Pete said, like we didn't realize what, like we each had our own message, but it was geared towards the same goal. And we didn't realize that there were a lot of different layers to what we wanted to share. So originally Pete just sent me that sketch and then that image of the guy in front of the flag. And I took it, and since the phrasing, the word was I'm American, I kind of got the feeling like, especially with like the ellipses at the end, like I'm American, dot. It's like are you, like, are you sure about that? It kind of gives that feel. And I could totally get where that's coming from, because it's like, oftentimes, like, when people see you as an Asian, it's like they don't think you're from here. They think you're from somewhere else. So it's kind of like you're an American, but there's kind of like a clause to it. And so I wanted to represent that, but I didn't want to make it look like in your face. And I'm in my art, I like subtle symbolism. And so I decided to take the phrase like born in American soil. And that's why this picture is a guy in a pot of soil and with an American flag, because he was born on American soil. And there's like this little plant on his head, because he's not like people who are like old money. They like grew up, like they have generations and generations and generations of like their family living in America, and he might be early in the game, but he's still born in America. And so that's the message that I wanted to give.
I found this thing that was interesting, Joyce. So when Joyce sent me this, remember, just to remind you guys, I gave her this. So that was a little fast. I gave her this.
Yeah.
And so when she sent me this back, you guys heard her interpretation. But when I saw this, I was very struck by, yeah, I know, Esther, where are you from? No, where are you really from? That's what we get, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that like I saw the plant on this character's head, and I was like, as Asian Americans, I always feel like there's room for us to grow as Americans, as Asians, and as Asian Americans, like this like
as a culture.
this multicultural thing within ourselves, right? There's multiple cultures that we're juggling, and we get tossed into Asian American, right? And so because Joyce is Korean,
American,
and I'm Vietnamese American, born in Iowa, but Vietnamese American and stuff, and so we're juggling these like different cultures and stuff. There's always room for us to grow. And so when I saw this, I was very like, wow, that plant metaphor, like that's about growing and stuff. And so it's interesting that like there were layers, as I was sharing, there were layers in what I sent to her that I didn't know about because it was subconscious. Yeah, Miguel, we're combining that idea of art to talk about the different topics of race, right?
Definitely.
And so I had different layers, subconscious layers that I didn't know about until actually talking about with Joyce yesterday. And then when we go to this, like this has those layers plus the layers conscious and subconscious that Joyce had. And so I found that very interesting. So this collaborative process that we've had really adds a lot of different layers. If you can find that synergistic kind of relationship, and in our case, it became a writer-artist relationship, so
yeah, I was gonna say that this is something that we talked about. I'm blanking now though. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that I thought making a zine, and especially in collaboration, when we're talking about like Asian American culture and the racism that we've experienced, and especially during the pandemic times, or in this time, is that I thought it was a really great opportunity to speak out as an Asian. I know that as Asians, like in our culture, it's very like, keep your head down, don't say anything. And I thought this was like a great way to just kind of share that message. And because I was doing with Pete and we were collaborating with this, like I felt encouraged, and I felt like he gave me that boldness, and we mutually encouraged each other. And I thought that was the greatest part about this. Yes. Are you looking at the chats? Yeah. Or
Miguel says he loves my drawings. But he is truly complimenting though your symbolism. So take that. And I think that at least for my message, I will end with this, or will end with this in this way. That there is this idea that there is value. We're not devaluing the idea that making a zine on your own is you know, like that is important. Making zines on your
Oh,
own,
yeah,
that
of
is an
course.
expression that is very
Mhm.
important. But we learned from this process collaboratively that what happened, and we didn't know this doing it. I was just like, hey, could you just draw this real quick? I can't even draw it, you know, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So what we kind of got out of this, or at least what I got out of it, was like that what became was near the end product, because we're still trying to figure out what the end product's looking like. We're kind of, you know, midway through that, but that there are multiple layers within these images that are subconscious to us, that, you know, and it's so exciting to kind of, you know, I see this and I got this entire thing from one perspective, and Joyce sees this and got it from a whole entirely different perspective. And when I shared with her, yeah, I was kind of going for this ad feel. She was like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, Joyce? You were
Yeah,
saying that yesterday, right?
yeah, definitely. I was just like, didn't realize that there was a lot more to it than we initially thought. And I thought that was really great.
Do you have any last words, Joyce, before we end this session?
No, I just hope that that motivates like anyone, you know, even if you don't consider yourself an artist or a writer, if you have a message to share, that's what making zines are about. And just because you don't draw, just because you don't write, doesn't mean that you can't do it. Just like how me and Pete found each other, we played on each other's strengths, like you can get that too. And we just wanted to encourage people to just share, you know, any way you can.
And I would also suggest to you, thank you, Joyce,
Yeah.
because most of you probably watching are artists such as Miguel and Daniel. I didn't get to see, Esther, what you were, but if you are an artist, I would collaborate with another artist, one as a writer and another as a artist, because then it just it's like two different total like perspectives in terms of what the product would come out. And I think that you'll be surprised and very, very like vibrant and excited about the product and the experience as Joyce and I have. So
Yeah, and I think it worked especially for both of us because we're both in the book publishing industry. As like Pete's, you know, he makes comics, and I want to get into children's books, and we're both in that, and so it worked out as the author and illustrator.
and Joyce does have a just a little plug, a children book. I checked it out and it's really awesome. So thank you all out there who've checked out our session, and go ahead and check it out. You know, check out our social media, and thank you to OC Zine Fest and Anaheim
And
Library.
Public Library. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks,
today.
guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right.